You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun.
Hey everybody, welcome to Friday's Finest. Glad to be here. We're going to get at it hot and heavy today. It's Masters weekend. Can't wait for this. This is, again, golf is a lot like NASCAR. They put their best event in the first part of the season, and early on, and Masters is typically one of the best shows and golf tournaments that you'll ever want to watch. The drama, the way CBS has done it for years, it's just an idyllic setting for this place. So we're going to get into that. We got James, got Chip with us here after the break to talk about Masters. We got a lot of other issues coming up today, but you are right where you need to be, right here on Masters Week, right here on Friday's Finest. We'll be back right after the break.
Hey, folks, when you look out and you see the country and just the disarray it is, you see the Biden administration, you see the wholesale prices have just went through the roof again. Inflation is tearing us up. If you have your finances all impinged in just a few areas, if you're just in stocks and bonds and you're not diversified, I got some news for you. You need a navigator. You need somebody to help you get to where you need to go with those finances. And I can't think of anybody better to do that than my friends at Legacy Precious Metals. You need precious metals in that portfolio. You need gold and silver. And Legacy Precious Metals, the folks there, they're the navigators. They know how to deal with tough times. They know and how to look ahead and take your personal situation and make it something that can be workable for you in the long term, because that's at the end of the day, that's the one you're most concerned about. You need to make sure that your personal finances and your retirement are secure. You need folks like Legacy Precious Metals helping you in that. They will take the time to learn you. They'll learn your finances. They'll learn where your investment goals are, and they'll help you get there. And metals and gold right now, in this kind of crazy inflation, in this kind of crazy economy with the Biden's economy, is just, you need that help. And Legacy Precious Metals is the one to do that. So give Legacy Precious Metals a call, 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can always visit them online at legacypminvestments.com, and you can download their free investor's guide. Legacy Precious Metals, they're the ones you need. They're the navigators to help you through these turbulent times. You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the box stores or the shopping channels as the way they used to. They've been part of the cancel culture, so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just one product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some of you may not even know about that. So to get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out the $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-pillow use My Pillows are just $25. My Pillow sandals, $25. Their 6-pack of towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels, you guessed it, just $25. And for the first time ever, the My Pillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. All orders over $75 will see free shipping too. This amazing offer won't last long, so go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Collins, that's COLLINS, or call 800-986-3994 today. That's promo code Collins. All
right. Jumping in, and Chip, let's jump in a little bit of politics here, because I just can't keep being astounded by the absolute chaos of the House of Representatives right now. It just gets worse. I mean, it's not getting better. They just took down another rule. Now, here's the one part I will have to say, Chip. I think the bill that they just took down is not a good bill. I mean, I would like to see them actually put some stuff into it. But, Chip, I mean, where do we go from here as a party?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Doug, it can get worse, and James and I addressed this a little bit on on Wednesday, and when you have the construct that exists today with one member of the House able to call at any time what is essentially a motion to vacate the chair, a vote of no confidence for the chair. Yeah, it could get worse. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene's 5-page letter to colleagues that she sent out on Tuesday of this week indicated that it could get worse. And I was a little chuckled, and James and I talked about it. We talked about it on Wednesday. At the end of Marjorie's letter, she said a 3-word sentence. It's just math. Then at the end of the day, it is just math. And so, math dictates that, if you have to pass something with the Democrats, that's just math. That's how they ended up having 15 votes to get Kevin McCarthy speaker to begin with. That's how 8 or 9 people got rid of Kevin McCarthy. So unfortunately, Doug, it could get worse. I think we need to buckle up our seatbelts because it could get worse pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Chip, I get you on that, and I think the biggest thing is it can get worse. But the question will come, and I think this, and I want to dive into a little bit of political here. I'm gonna throw this out there, and I think it's one of these we're gonna find out. I used to think this was not going to matter in the election cycle. I'm now beginning to believe it could matter in a few of these races, but the crazy part about it is for what all of us see as dysfunction in Congress is not really moving the needle on elections.
No, it's not, and I guess we could say that's a good thing, right? Because if people were to base their vote on who they were going to support in Congress based upon how stable the House of Representatives was, I mean, we'd come back with 75 members, So I just, this is a national election. Most of these presidential elections, as you know, Doug, are. And so, we have a divided country. We've got Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. And I think both of their floors is around 47%. And both of their ceilings is around 50.5. So, that's the margin of error in which we're working on now. I mean, their floors and their ceilings are less than a margin of error is on a regular poll. So it's just the space we live in right now.
Yeah. And that's not taking into account any possible after effects or anything else of a third party in certain states. And I think that's
exactly right. That's exactly right.
And yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. Well, another thing talking about this, and I'm torn on this one as well because look, I'm very pro-life. You know that we've worked together, we've done this. The abortion issue. Look, at one point, I think it's becoming the healthcare issue to me. In fact, when you they do away with Obamacare, what are you going to replace it with mentality? Which Republicans, in 17 look like. We didn't have a plan, which in fairness, we did have a plan. It just didn't come together and the narrative got rolled. Abortion is becoming that same issue. It looks like now because Republicans are not able to properly frame, the debate is look, there are some who like no abortion, or push for no abortions. There's some who are pushing for, like Democrats who are pushing in their own platform for abortions up to 40 weeks. But the 80% of the middle of the country is at some kind of restrictions on abortion, especially after viability, anywhere from 22 weeks down to 15 weeks or lower. Is this the legs that it is beginning to look like it's going to have, especially now with the turn from President Trump actually talking about the states' rights issue, which many of us have talked about before, but alienating life groups? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, gosh, a lot to unpack there, right? I mean, I would agree that Republicans haven't done a good job of framing the abortion issue. Where I might deviate from you a little bit, Doug, is that I think this issue for us and Republicans is very similar to the issue that the Democrats find themselves in on the issue of immigration and border, right? I mean, if you talk to a diehard Democrat today, every one of them will tell you that they can win on the border issue. We can win on the border issue. We're just not messaging it right. We need to frame Republicans as, not agreeing with Senator Langford's compromise in the Senate, and we'll win on the immigration issue. That's ridiculous. I mean, the reason that the Democrats are getting beat over the head on the immigration issue is because everybody knows that Joe Biden doesn't care and is unwilling to do what needs to be done to fix the problem at the border. You can talk about a compromise in the Senate all day long. I'm afraid the abortion issue has already cost us in the ballot box. It cost us last cycle. I mean, all of the characteristics existed for there to be a national wave, and there was no national wave. And I think there was no national wave because that election happened 4 months after, 5 months after, 4.5 months after, I guess, Roe versus Wade was overturned. And, I'm with you. I'm split on this issue, Doug, but I gotta say that I think President Trump and, candidate Trump is I got to agree with how he's handling it, right? I mean, we can't go into with this election cycle. I mean, it does seem like a bigger issue to women who are likely going to vote against us than the disastrous immigration issue. And so, yeah, we gotta message it better. But we also, especially Trump. I mean, Trump produced, picked Supreme Court justices that overturned Roe. So, to me, it would be disingenuous for those on the right to be really upset with what he's doing right now, because at the end of the day, he gave us the 3 of the 5 votes on the Supreme Court that overturned Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, I think it's just the way I think some is being perceived. It's just I think there's a big communication issue. It's something Republicans have got to deal with because now the debate is getting framed into absolutionists on both sides, and that's a narrative that neither side frankly wins. And again, we'll see how that comes out as we go further here. Just to pick before we get into some fun stuff here today, I am of the opinion that in the national election cycle, which I agree with you, is most of these are nationalized, and also the fact that there's only about 10 to 15 truly what I'll call swingy congressional seats in the House. The only thing that we go back to that first question we had is, can it get worse? Well, if 2 people, because basically that's all that's needed right now is 2 people to vacate the chair with Mike Johnson. The Trump campaign can't want that. Others can't want that simply because, here it goes again with the narrative that will feed the airwaves in September, October of a dysfunctional conservative Republican Party.
That's exactly right, and that's the danger that we face, right? I mean, that's the space we find ourselves in, and so I was wrong in my assessment 2 years ago that I didn't think abortion would be a deciding issue, and I think it was. And it's hard to believe it's still here, but when you look at what happened, with the Arizona Supreme Court ruling, and that was on a statute that was an 1843 statute. I think we got to pay attention to those things. And yeah, look, what's going on in the House right now, Doug? Yeah, here's the good news is that it's pretty obvious we don't have our act together, but the good news is, they don't really have theirs together too. It's like the old saying, democracy is the worst form of government with the exception of all the rest of the forms. And that's where the 2 parties find themselves now.
Yep. Yeah, I agree, and I think that's the part that we dig into as we go forward. So, look, there's a lot. We're going to spend more time. We'll take folks. We're going to take another few weeks here, and we're going to take and Chip and I'll break down political for a long time. But I think just hitting the highlights right now. I think, look, frankly, Speaker Johnson is doing, is knowing him personally, I think he's doing the best he can. He just is just given, frankly, a no-win situation. And then you've got the Senate, who is becoming basically the same thing. I think the next big thing will be is if the Republicans can actually force the Democrats into having a hearing on Mayorkas. I think that's going to be an interesting debate of power in the Senate, and is Schumer going to actually give into it? It's going to be interesting to see. All right, let's move on. This Friday's finest. We got to look back on the OJ saga is over. OJ is no longer among the land of the living. OJ Simpson is now dead. He passed away. Has there ever been a more iconic figure in American life that has went from major hero to major pariah in the lifetime of OJ Simpson?
Someone who wasn't alive for his glory days as an athlete or his days as an actor, though I do love the Top Gun movies. Let's talk about the greatest fall from grace of all time. Like, we all talk about Tiger Woods after his little sexual or sexcapades or whatever we want to call them. This is literally he was like, somebody described him sort of like a Michael Strahan character, where he's super famous in football and then super famous outside of football, and everyone pretty much loved him. And then 1994 happens, and the world is so split on him. It divided. It became a racial issue. It became this, that, and the other thing. And he's the most hated man on the planet for half of America. Is that not like that? That is and now he's gone, and you got people saying rest in peace, which is, I don't even have the energy for it. There are plenty of people who should be resting in peace. I don't know if OJ's one of them.
Yeah, well, Chip, I mean, think about it, because I think you and I have. I mean, it's interesting to hear James's perspective on that. Is only knowing the post Brentwood OJ. You and I both know the prior, the thing that actually got him to Brentwood, if you would. I mean, I remember as a kid thinking OJ Simpson was, in the 70s when I was playing football as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. OJ, everybody wanted to be OJ.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was the man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a stud on the field. I mean, he was in many ways, and I think this is kind of a fair comparison. I mean, he was the Bo Jackson, Eric Dickerson, Walter Payton kind of thing before there were all those guys.
Yes, he was. And he threw it all away.
He was brutal.
Yeah. He threw it all away. But look, let's just take a moment to celebrate the fact that he is, as the Babylon Bee says, OJ Simpson is excited for God to tell him who the real killer was. So after all of these years, OJ finally gets to know who the real killer is.
Oh my God! Did the Babylon Bee posted that today? That's hilarious.
They did.
Yeah, Babylon.
Wait, did you
Babylon
see
Bee,
that apparently? And I don't know how. I want to make sure this is true. But I'm gonna say it anyway because who cares? Apparently, the Heisman Council said rest in peace to former Heisman Trophy winner OJ Simpson, but Reggie Bush still doesn't have his Heisman back. Are we all on the same page here?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't see. Well, first of all, I think Reggie Bush should have his Heisman. But second of all, I didn't see that the Heisman committee.
Yeah, I think they actually posted it. I want to make sure before I'm in trouble here. But yeah, if that's the case, though, that is the crazy.
I'm going to throw something in here, though. And just for a minute, okay, just as we're having, this is what Friday's Finest is kind of about. We are talking about an individual who was acquitted in a court of law by a jury of their peers. And it's one of the craziest cases in that absolutely nobody, it seems like outside those 12 people, believed he was innocent.
No, but Doug, here's where I would disagree with you. I think those 12 people knew he was guilty. They didn't care because Mark Furman lied to them lied to them, and it did become very racial, and and that's I say I mean, look, I'm sure there's somebody on the jury that they probably convinced he didn't do it, but as this was the first case where I learned the difference between innocent and not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law, because I remember running into people say, well, the court found him innocent. No. The court did not find him innocent. They found him not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt after a police officer lied to them on the stand about the glove and, was caught using the N-word. And it was just a disaster for the prosecution. It had nothing to do with whether or not OJ Simpson killed Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson, but it was certainly something that that persuaded the jury. And look, we have we have the best government in the world. It's not without faults. I think we have a great court system too, but the court system doesn't always get it right. There's no such thing as perfect, and I think that's I think that's kind of where the dust settled on the OJ Simpson verdict.
Hey, James, from your perspective, on a younger perspective here, is actually, frankly, only knowing him post Brentwood. Okay. Do you think, and I'm interested to see this, and Chip, to weigh in as well. Do you think the OJ verdict began the downward spiral of people's belief in or a spiral in which you have the now very current belief, which we've seen acted out in many ways, of a two-tier system of justice? It's a deeper question.
I guess this is what all right, what's funny? I heard this today. Someone actually said this case, and I know you used the word downfall, so I want to use that again, was a massive, it sounded like some of the progress we had made racially and otherwise had all been pushed back to this moment and started a downward spiral since. I know that doesn't technically answer your question, but I guess, go ahead.
Well, go ahead. Your generational perspective. Yeah, your generational perspective. Chip, I think from our generational perspective, I mean, I can see that it became if you were, and it, if it was a racial tone to it, but also very much of a financial tone to it, that there were, so many people, he could buy the best attorneys in the world. And there became this idea that if you can buy your way out of something, that I think, maybe initially doesn't approach what we're seeing these days, in some of the DOJ stuff, the Trump stuff, the Biden stuff, and everything else, or Hillary Clinton stuff, or anything else. But it does go back, I think, that, so that reinforcement of, there can't, it depends on who you are, as no matter what justice you get.
Yeah, and I could see that, Doug. I really didn't view the OJ Simpson trial through that lens. And I say the trial, it was really the verdict and the response to the verdict. Because I remember, look, I'm 51 years old, right? So I'm not young, but I was in college when that verdict came out. And I remember vividly, I remember vividly the differences in how the white student body responded to the verdict and the black student body responded to the verdict. I mean, I remember watching the verdict from my 398 Sanders Street home, and then I remember seeing video of African-American black students watching it at the student union, and they were celebrating like their team had just won the Super Bowl. And it was the first time, I guess, in my life where there was, the court system had the whole world's attention, and the court system in the United States had it did have the whole world's attention, but it certainly had the country's attention. And I think the Mark Furman testimony, and the fact that O.J. Simpson was African American and he killed his former white wife and Ronald Goldman, who was wife. It just it was the first memory that I had of how juries can make decisions based upon race, and I think they did there. And look, let me be clear. I mean, there are African American defendants, and there have been African American defendants all across the country who have been on the other side of that dynamic, right? So it's not a one-sided. I'm not trying to say that it's a one-sided dynamic, but it certainly was for that trial, and it also too, I mean, I was young. I was a kid in my early 20s. It was when I realized that our court system is not perfect and is going to make some mistakes.
Yeah, and I think that's your. I think that was the eye-opening fact for most people. This idea of innocence and guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and I think that standard, as you talked about earlier, yeah, there was. I can remember, being a little bit, older. I was already, when this verdict. I tell you what's interesting here, and I'll just throw that out here and just let it rest for a second. The OJ, the killing, and the trial. From the time that Nicole and Goldman were killed until the trial of OJ Simpson went faster than some of the January 6th defendants have sat in D.C. District Jail.
Yes.
In court. Something's wrong.
Well, not only did that go faster, imagine the Young Thug trial in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. It's been going on for years.
That's the longest trial ever.
Yeah, it's just.
Yes.
And brought to you by Fonnie Willis.
I gotta tell you, I saw something where they said, and I don't know, because again, I was literally, I guess this happened in June of '94, right? Or yeah, so
yeah,
I was a year and a half old. Please don't attack me for being a young child, but there were a lot of people that said that. Although, yes, this was a race trial, this was more specifically geared towards the fact that the Rodney King beatings didn't result the way it should have, and that no matter what happened, whether they believed OJ was innocent or not, had nothing to do with it. Was that part of this back then? Because again, you're right. I really wasn't around for it. I only watched the. It was right.
And
it was a major discussion point where people were like, it was almost like. When people were, and this has nothing to do with the actual politics of it, but there were people, I remember at the time, that were making jokes about the fact that they were like, yeah, we voted Obama in. We didn't know what he was doing. We voted him because he was black. And that was sort of the same way it was for the OJ case. It was like, I don't care if he's right or wrong. I'm voting against this. I mean, I'm rooting for him because of the injustices prior.
Yes.
Yep. The police became an issue. Chip is exactly
Mark
on
Furman
did and also damage. Look, I mean,
we did.
Yeah, it was. Well, and also if you remember back at that time again, with James, you being younger, I mean, this was a whole rise of the urban scene, the urban hip hop scene, the cultural change, the grunge movement that was coming on. I mean, this was the rise of NWA, Dr. Dre, these were, I mean, it was just a time in which this was really highlighted coming off of a decade of the 80s, in which this had been moving, quote, forward.
It was a culmination of a lot at one time.
Oh, there's tons of stuff.
It was the perfect storm, and I know we've discussed OJ longer than anyone should ever discuss him, but it is amazing because they were like, why did people care about this so much? OJ was famous for multiple reasons, but also because OJ was like the fun person. Like it wasn't like there was. I guess there's probably people out there, and I can't name them because I'm not going to start naming people that I think like could be murderers. But if you heard certain people were a murderer, you'd be like, that might make sense. It never made sense for OJ, and it was so violent.
But
and then he tried to escape to Mexico, which should have been the number one thing. Saying, "Hey." What did they say? He was under distress. Yeah. That's the reason that he fled to Mexico.
Yeah, I remember watching the Bronco. Okay, so it was. I mean, I can actually remember watching.
Cut off the NBA Finals for
yeah. Well, I mean, coming off of this, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. I mean, I think that there's so much to unpack. I mean, because you go on to the, acceptable, who was crossover appeal to all races. OJ was that. Some in the communities didn't like. I mean, look, there's just a lot to unpack. But either way, it's now it's consigned to history because he's no longer on the land of the living. Speaking of those who probably wish that they were not in the land of at least publicity, is Mizuhara was the translator for Shohei Ohtani, who now it is coming out. James brought this to my attention, but 19,000 bets, none of which were on baseball, understandably, but he won $142 million and lost $183 million.
That's right. $40 million in the hole, baby. It is so funny that we are here right now. That what? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's crazy. No, it's crazy.
The effort to put $19,000 bets in alone to an illegal bookie sounds exhausting on its own.
I agree. What about you, Chip? Would you miss $40 million?
I mean, holy cow. I mean, where do we start, right? I was just going to say what James said. I mean, the idea of putting 19,000 bets in, I mean, I've been known to gamble recreationally, and, I have trouble getting, 10 football bets in on a football weekend. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, when did he have time to translate? And by the way, how did Shohei Ohtani not know this was going on? I mean, there's just no way. I still believe there's got to be more.
I am firmly under the impression. Yeah. This is my firm impression. I think this is what happened. I think it's Ipke, right? This is his first name. I feel like I'm getting that wrong. He put up money. He made illegal bets, couldn't cover them, asked Shohei if he could cover his bets. Shohei said, "Do not let this get back to me." In other words, you can change all my passwords, do all this stuff, you can do whatever you want for your absurd gambling addiction because I don't want to lose you. Do not bet on baseball, and we're good. And that's what happened. But $19,000 bets is, I don't know how anyone has the time to place that many bets. Someone said it would be placing 200 bets a day for 345 days straight. Something like that. I don't know the math, but it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't see how that could happen.
That's just staggering. I mean, that's a staggering amount.
I mean, but and to think here, the problem that I think most people are going to have at some point in time is he's still playing baseball and Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, he didn't bet on baseball. As long as he didn't bet on baseball, it doesn't matter. If he bet on baseball, then yes, then it would be a travesty. But he didn't bet on baseball, and there's nothing linking him directly to the bets. Shohei, if whether he was in on it or not, he was protected in every single sense.
Okay, did we just not talk about another famous athlete that had something to do with California?
So what we're saying is LA is the problem. LA is dangerous. It's California.
Not being legally bound here, Chip.
Yeah, I was about to say. It reminds me of He's going to get life because not only did he do it, but he did it stupid. People were betting on unders on how many rebounds and points he was going to have in 2 games in which he left early due to injury and illness. Duh. I mean, you can't make this up.
Yeah. Can't make it up. Well, speaking of stuff you can't make up either, and that is the glory and the wonder that is the Masters. And the Masters is kicked off today. And right now it looks like that if you drew a late tee time today and you're one of the tops in the world, you are struggling. The later tee times on Thursday, and we're, of course, it's Friday night, we're taping this late just for information. We're taping this late on Thursday. Thagala and several of these who teed off after 4 o'clock are at this point in time at one. They're at 1 over their There's nobody in the lower rounds here. And also, if you look at this, you have another live player sitting at the number one spot, and right behind him at this current moment is, guess who? Scotty Scheffler.
He's taking that money, baby.
Yeah. Look. I told James on Wednesday.
Chip,
I told James on Wednesday, Scotty Scheffler was plus 400 to win this tournament. That's 4-1. I really thought he would come out at plus 200 at 2-1. So speaking of illegal betting, I loaded up on plus 400 Scotty Scheffler. And I got to tell you, I feel pretty good about that bet right now, despite the fact that, Bryson just went crazy today and shot 7 under. But, look, tomorrow morning, these guys that are on the course now, if they finish their round, they're going to have early tee times tomorrow. That's how it works. And so, when 15-mile-an-hour winds are blowing and it's 49 degrees, it feels like a lot more wind than if it's 15-mile-an-hour winds at 75 degrees, which is what the afternoon tee time guys are going to get. So, but look, I'm just happy it's Masters Week, man. I'm so excited about it, and I love it that the forecast is dry for the remainder of the week. So, looks like we won't have any more rain delays.
Yeah, it looks like the guys, here's the sad part. Those guys who are actually teeing off probably at 8, 9, 10 in the morning are going to have 10, 12, 15, 16, 17-mile-an-hour winds, and it's going to pick up in the afternoon. So all of them are going to be affected. Here's an interesting, would be a prop bet. The winds seem to be dying a little bit toward the weekend. The interesting bet will be what will be the cut line this year at Augusta.
Yes.
I'm predicting plus 3 or better.
Look, the cut line is different in the Masters than any other tournament. It's not the top 50 or top 60 players. It's the top 50 players or anybody within 10 shots of the lead. So that, and even if that number is 62, 63, and in years past it has been, and so this could be one of those years, unless DeChambeau goes crazy on a round tomorrow, and then that won't come into, but it's only an 88-person field, so it's a small cut. This is the smallest cut of any of the 4 men.
Yeah, it is. And all right, I got a question for you, and as we talk about, because you're sitting here with live players, all over the leaderboard. I mean, and they look. I mean, I may disagree. I think they should play 72. They say they should play 54. I get it. I mean, in a thing, they're making a lot of money. But, a lot of these live players are going to be on the weekend. They're playing in. You got Bryson on top. You got, some of these others that are coming in. Well, here's Michael Rory is at -2. But you got some of these coming in that are going to be around. Rahm's at -1. I mean, and they're all going to be there. Reed. The question will be, and this is an interesting one. It came out yesterday, I guess it was, that the Augusta National did not, through professional channels, give or let purchase Greg Norman tickets to come or passes to come to the Masters. This is the second year in a row. The Masters, of course, can do whatever they want to do. They're the only golf course club in the world. They're the only tournament in the world that could basically tell your sponsors, we're not going to have sponsors. We're going to do this anyway, and everybody would still show up. Okay? Mm-hmm. Is it getting a little punching down in weight here for the Masters to not extend – someone who, by the way, you go back to the 90s and early 2000s, Greg Norman had some of the most amazing losses, but amazing rounds at the Masters. Are we punching down here, Chip and James?
I don't think so, Doug. I mean, I think, look, the Augusta National Golf Club has not only let in LIV players, but they gave a special exemption and a special invitation this year to an LIV golfer, which I think shocked everybody. Joaquin Niemann did not qualify for this tournament. And so, when the special invitations came out, I think it was the right thing to do for the Augusta National Golf Club to give it to somebody like Joaquin Niemann. And they largely gave it to him because Joaquin Niemann tried to get into this tournament by playing other global events outside of LIV that guys like Taylor Gooch didn't play. Look, the Augusta National Golf Club has been known for years to want all the focus all the week is to be on golf. Had they extended an invite to Greg Norman, then you have to let him behind the ropes. You have to let him have access to the press that's behind the ropes. And then all of a sudden, you lose the narrative. Now, what you can't control is if Greg Norman does what he did yesterday. He buys a ticket on the secondary or the third market. You let him in, but I don't think so. I mean, it's look, LIV has been very disruptive to golf. The Augusta National Golf Club doesn't like, they're the antithesis of disruption. I think they've handled LIV well, but, I don't know if I was, and by the way, they didn't call and ask my opinion, but I don't know if I was at the Augusta National Golf Club that I would have extended an invite to Greg Norman either.
Right. James, do you agree with Rory that golf is in a crisis right now and basically implying that the LIV problem has done?
LIV is the problem. You know what else is the problem? No one cares about golf without Tiger Woods. That has literally been a proof of that every year. LIV golf is an issue because it's got unlimited funding. They could bury themselves in debt and it wouldn't matter, right? So they can just keep going. And if you listen, I am not going to sit here and tell you that there's a world where I'm one of the top golfers and the PGA Tour says you can earn your money, or the other one says, here's 50 up front, come play for us. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I got a family to feed. Let me go pretend to be in a real golf league. No, I'm going to go take dirty money. I'm going to swing the club, whether I win or lose, take home $50 million and relax. And I will do it with a smile. All right? I can't pretend that I'm better than any of these people. So, yes, it is a huge problem. Until the TGA Tour says, we're going to give you money up front, we're going to give you all these benefits, blah, blah. I mean, you're talking about people's lives here. The reason the big leagues work is because they take care, for the most part, of their players. The NFL, despite the fact that they have made some major mistakes, has done a lot to try to protect players. And as long as that keeps happening, people will play in the NFL. Okay? With golf, they need to protect their players. They need to give them every opportunity to earn and give them a good salary up front. And these guys will stay in the U.S. playing real important tournaments.
Chip, how far?
I would say two things to that. That's why I like John Rahm so much, because I hated to see him go to LIV. But unlike a lot of the original golfers that went to LIV that tried to justify going by, well, it's another league, it's fun, there's music, we only played 3 days, it's a lighter schedule. When John Rahm went to LIV, he essentially said, hey, I went for the money. I mean, I'm going to take care of my family forever. It's less on the body, but I went for the money. I mean, I don't know that he quite said it as crass as I just said it, but he didn't try to hide it, right? And I like that. And I make no mistake about it. If the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia wanted to spend this much money and take over the game of football or basketball or tennis or baseball, they could do it. And they could do it for the same reason James just said. There has never been another professional sports league in the history of the world that has lost more money than LIV. LIV doesn't make any money. They're not profitable. They don't make money selling hot dogs and Diet Cokes and Michelob Lights, right? You make money on huge TV contracts, and they don't have one. And they're paying these exorbitant purses. And so, look, it is creating a problem for the money, but, let's call it for what it is. It's sports washing. I mean, it is sports washing. And it is. If LIV ended today, and it won't end today because it can go on forever as long as Saudi Arabia wants to continue to fund it. But, don't tell me that the NFL won't have the same problem if Yasser El-Ramayan goes to all free agents or everybody even under contract and says, hey, I'll pay you 3 times what the Chicago Bears are paying you. I'll pay you 4.5 times what the Cincinnati Bengals are paying you. Then there would be another football league. And it's just money talks, Doug, you and I have talked about that a million times in politics. And, and we ran into it when you ran against Kelly Loeffler, who spent $59 million running for Senate. Money just talks. And we saw that, and it was disappointing, but it is what it is. And same thing's happening with golf. I'm sorry, I'm off of my soapbox now.
No, the equivalent, that was the equivalent of live in politics.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Well, but here's the thing, though. I disagree, Chip. I think golf is the one area you could do it.
Could do what now?
They could come in and buy.
Sure.
I don't see, and because it's easier, because it's single player. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not team oriented.
Yep.
So it'd be harder to buy the entire NFL. I mean, you couldn't do it. I mean, the USFL tried to do that in the 80s and it failed.
They didn't have the money, though. They failed because they ran out of money.
Well, they ran out of money. Initially, they had it, but they could. But again, I see your point, and I think this is the point, though. Michael, let's turn to what I think is the inevitable here. Okay, when do they come back together, and how do they do it?
I can tell you. I can give you a real idea. This is going to sound stupid, but I'm going to say it anyway out loud. Like NASCAR, there are teams. Like Formula One racing, there's a team. There should be big clubs or whatever you want to call them, and players get paid ahead of time, and they golf for that club. So when they win, that club wins. That's it. You have ownership. End of conversation. Everybody gets paid when there's ownership.
But look. I mean, I see what you're saying, James. But golf. I mean, for those of us who do golf, and I do it badly. In fact, I just went out to the range the other day and hit balls, and I'm like, okay, 60% of these were fine, and 40% of these, like, God, did I ever start? Why did I ever play? But golf is just something different. And Chip and James, we have another dear friend who's family with us three that we text between, and we went off this about a couple of weeks ago. And Live cannot match PGA, in my opinion, on the drama because of the way they do their tournaments.
The format's horrendous.
The shotgun start is awful. I mean, nobody knows who's winning. Everybody's playing. I mean, it's like going to the Kiwanis or Rotary at your local club and everybody shotgun starts and everybody's lying about their scores. But, but when you have, like the Nick Dunlap story from earlier this year out in California, here's an amateur from Alabama who's winning, and he's coming in. And, James, where I differ on you about the pay, I think there's ways to infer pay. But to me, the biggest advantage of PGA is we were talking about this the other day. I had my boys on a text chain. It was Sunday in the final round. And you get down to where putts, and Chip, you know this, putts are literally worth $500,000, $200,000 or $300,000.
Yeah.
You don't have that.
Yeah, Doug. And then going back to your question, when is this gonna resolve itself? Well, I'm gonna tell you a very big item of differentiation in this Masters from last Masters with respect to LIV is this: the LIV is not eligible for the official World Golf Rankings. They're not. Right. They sued and they lost, and they're not eligible. And so, last year there were 21 LIV players that teed it up in the Masters. This year they're 13. And that doesn't mean that 7 of those players, or 8 of those players, however many it was, aren't good enough to play this year. They just didn't accumulate any world ranking points. And so as every year goes by, that becomes more and more important to LIV golfers if they want to play the majors. And so far, they really haven't run into an obstacle to play the majors, because if they get into the majors, Brooks Koepka in 2 majors last year accumulated enough enough exemptions where he can play for the next 5-10 years. Not everybody's like that, right? And so I think that dynamic will ultimately end up to some agreement, because right now the parties are talking, but they want two different things. I think it might be another year.
Does that hurt the fans more and the league, or the players more? Because realistically, if they stop letting these guys be ranked and they slowly fade off, they're still getting paid by live. They're fine.
That's exactly right.
Like, it's going to come to a head close. It's going to be PGA's problem less than it's the guys playing for live.
Well,
problem.
I think
they'll just be like, okay, I'm not in it. Whatever.
Well, James just brings up a good point, Chip, and as we sort of round out this discussion here, the DJ, the Dustin Johnson, who I have a lot of respect for. I mean, he basically said also he went for money. I mean, he said I had to do it what I want to do it, and I don't really care. But at a certain point in time, all these guys, there's a shelf life to their greatness. Okay,
of course, you bet.
And so if they don't win, I mean, most of them are getting invites like to the Masters. Like a Master champion will always get an invite. They're there for life.
Right.
U.S. Open is like 10 years. I mean, so if these champions, but you're right. I mean, I didn't realize that statistic. But next year, out of that 13, you could probably cut that in half. Even next year, where you only have 6 live players there. And all of them are former champions or top 10.
Yeah,
because top 10 can get in as well.
Well, but, that's right.
So I think this is where it's going to come in. You just really wonder about some of these, like who's Koepka in particular, who is, I mean, he's wired to majors. That's just what he's wired to.
Yeah.
Shambo, similar situation.
Yeah,
DJ could have, I think, if he had stayed, probably would have won a couple of other majors in this time. Here's the interesting thing: who it really helped was those ranked 15 to 45 players in the PGA Tour who are now at the top of leaderboards. Who nobody has any clue to who they are on Sunday, and they wouldn't have been in those leader positions if you still had a full field of 30 or 40 golfers that took out of the top 50 in the world.
That's right. I mean, guys like Jake Knapp, guys like Nick Dunlap, we would have never heard of those two in all likelihood, if not for LIV, right? But
or Tom Kim.
That's Tom Kim. That's right. And I'll go back to kind of something James said. And here's the dirty little secret about all this is that if you were to talk privately with all the big name players that moved to LIV, not one of them will tell you that they think that their league is sustainable, right? They think they moved to LIV to make quick money because they thought they'd be back on tour in 3 or 4 years. So if Yasser El-Rumayyan drags this out and it looks like that's not going to happen, I'm just curious to see how that goes, because they all left thinking they'd make quick money. I mean, they know that, playing with rock and roll music 15 times a year, having shotgun starts in 3 rounds, they didn't think that was sustainable. I mean, come on, who does, right? And so I don't know. It's the longer, this is the 3rd year now of Liv. We're in the 3rd year and we're halfway through the 3rd year. If this makes it 6 or 7 years, it'll be very interesting, because those do they continue to cherry pick a John Rahm every year, or do they come to an agreement? It's a fascinating dynamic.
How long are their contracts? Because if they're only a couple of years.
Well, that's I would say that's the $1 million question, but it's probably more than $1 million question.
Probably the $50+ million question.
That's
if their
right.
Contract's only 3 or 4 years, they get their money, then they'll go back to the league.
Well, if the league will have them, right?
PGA will. I'm telling you right now, the PGA is not stupid enough not to take these guys back. If they are, fine.
But they would have to pay a penalty of some sort. They would
tell them to pay a couple $1 million. It's nothing for them now.
Yes, they would have to. And yes, I think if that happens, but the reality is we don't know how long their contracts are, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's possible that these players' contracts could all be of different durations, right? And so that's a fascinating dynamic. I don't know how long. I would imagine Phil Mickelson.
4 years for Brooks Koepka. It ends in 2025.
Yeah, interesting.
$100 million.
Yeah, it's pretty good contract.
There's no world I'm not taking that. I'm greedy as hell.
I know. I get it. I mean, I'm not that good at golf, and they haven't asked me to play for them. But if they do ask me, it's hard to say no to that type of money. It really is.
Well, and they're able to keep it quiet as well, and I think that's going to be the key as we go through here. Well, folks, here's the deal. I think Scheffler's. I've got a prediction. I think. I think Scheffler's well on his way to winning the Masters. I agree with Chip. It's the safest bet. It's the best bet. I think that it is probably true, but I'm still of the opinion, especially with some of this win, some of this others, you could get another name in there. But I have a prediction. It came close last year. I think it will happen this year. It goes into this conversation we're having here, though. I think there will be a LIV champion this year at the Masters.
Then you're betting against Scotty Scheffler.
It's hard, believe me.
Zalatoris.
But it's the question is, Scheffler seems to have gotten in toward the end of this round. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Look, I think Scheffler is the win. If I put money, I'm putting Scheffler.
Yeah.
But I do believe that the majors do, because they took. I mean, here's the thing with LIV. LIV took the best. They took the cream. Okay. Mm-hmm. They didn't go down and pick up. I mean, they got some just to fill out the roster. Don't get me wrong, but they did take the ones who are pretty much in their prime right now for going, to play golf. So, I mean, you're looking at it no matter what, because the ones that they took are actually the prime players in majors. And I think the Rahms, the Johnsons, the Chambos, the DeChambos, the Koepkas are the ones that you would, if they were on PGA Tour right now, all of them would be in the top 5 of anybody predicting along with Scheffler to be a winner this week as we go. So here is the question that we'll sort of end it with this today on the podcast. In the Masters this week, I have you 2 questions. One, does Tiger make the cut? The second is, does Rory make the top 10? Chip.
I hope Tiger makes the cut, and I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to say yes, Rory finishes top 10, but it's going to be 9 or 10. He's not going to be top 5, but I think he will be top 10.
Cool. James.
No to Rory, yes to Tiger Woods.
Okay. All right. I think it's going to be yes to both. I think Rory's going to have that strained pain look on his face, like he is still needing to go to the restroom because he's constipated coming into the 18th, knowing he's 4 shots down and doesn't have a chance. Although it's been interesting, if any of you have watched, a curious question for those of you, have y'all watched Full Swing the second season?
I have not, but I want to.
Yeah, you need to.
Netflix,
when y'all do, tell me, and we'll talk about it on the Friday's Finest. Because Rory, look, I don't dislike Rory. I think Rory now realized he got screwed. And Full Swing sort of brings some of that out. So I encourage you to watch it. It's pretty cool as we go. As we leave here on the last time, also something that, again, for me, it's amazing how news channels pick up on just the craziest stuff to put out. And now they have determined, as everybody's favorite quarterback wife, Brittany Mahomes, has now dyed her hair red.
Yo, what are we going to do?
So that's where we'll end it here. A red moment here on the Friday's Finest for the Doug Collins Podcast. Glad y'all are with us. Go to the Doug Collins Podcast, hit subscribe. Make sure you tell your friends about it. Hit if you got any questions about it or you disagree with anything that the crew here said today, just hit me an email. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, we'll see you next time.